Experts warn climate drivers are hitting new heights, setting the scene for an El Nino weather cycle that typically brings heat waves and bushfires to Australia's east. Joining me live is ANU Institute for Climate, Energy and Disaster Solutions Professor Mark Howden. Professor, thanks for your time this morning. So we've not just got the El Nino in the equatorial Pacific, which means the cooling of waters on the surface temperatures, which means less evaporation, but the positive Indian Ocean dipole on the other side could be working together to produce quite a troubling scenario this summer.
Yeah, a lot of our big droughts are actually where you would get both an El Nino and a Indian Ocean dipole positive event. So it's bringing in dry conditions both from the east and from the northwest.
Okay, so we're saying that this is going to be quite strong. What are you predicting for our summer in particular?
Well, at the moment, the El Nino is shaping up to be quite strong. There's a lot of warm water coming across from the Central America, across the Pacific, and it's starting to also influence what's going on in the atmosphere. And when those two things start to work together, it tends to reinforce the El Nino status. And so that's actually what's happening right now. And that tends to bring hotter and drier conditions to Eastern Australia, as you've mentioned. Of course, it doesn't always mean that an El Nino equals a drought, nor are all droughts in El Nino years, but it does change the odds.
Okay, now we've been getting at the moment these big northwest cloud bands coming through delivering rain, so moisture is still coming from that Indian Ocean northwest, and I've been talking with farmers and they were actually blindsided by some of the rain that's been coming through because they were told that the back end of May and June was going to be very dry, but they've been getting rain, so they haven't been able to prepare. Have you been surprised at the rain that has been coming down from the northwest direction?
Well, it's a pretty significant event, and if you look at the weather maps, you can see that big flow of moisture in from the northwest, and it is a bit unusual and a bit of a surprise at this time of year. But that also does reflect the fact that we're seeing a long-term trend towards more of our rainfall in the cooler months in southern Australia is actually coming from those tropical influences, so more from the northwest than traditionally from the west and south. So we are seeing that sort of long-term change there due to climate changes influencing how our pressure systems work.
There's been some troubling graphics that has been circulating across social media in particular showing the North Atlantic sea surface temperatures, and that anomaly there is, about 2 degrees above normal. I think we've got it on screen for you now. So basically you can see it's well above all the other ranges that we've got at the moment. The North Atlantic sea surface temperature anomaly chart, there it is. Do you have an understanding about why that line is going up so far above all the other previous years?
Well, actually, when we look at the global ocean temperatures, it's not just the North Atlantic, but right across the globe, we're actually seeing this year is an extraordinary year. So we're, as you point out, well above those previous years. So we are in unprecedented territory. And that's very much associated with climate change. So that's the underlying driver. And this particular spike could also be associated with the breakdown of that La Nina that we experienced for those last 3 years. So there's a few things going on there. We've also in the Atlantic, there's been less dust from Africa than normal, and so that tends to cool the ocean to the west of Africa. And because there's been less dust over this recent summer period, we're also seeing warm temperatures in that area as well. So there's multiple things going on at the moment, and they all add up to extraordinary levels of ocean temperatures.
And does that mean that places like Europe are in a bit of trouble in terms of heat waves with those sea surface temperatures, or is that not really correlated?
Oh, I think you certainly see a very warm period over in Europe here, so in their summer, and so it will be important to see what's going on. These conditions can also change what happens with the jet streams and the intrusion of those. So when you get the sort of wobbling of the jet stream, the polar vortex, as people call it, coming further south, and that could also occur. So in some of these years, it's not just that you get extraordinary high temperatures, but you can also get extraordinary low temperatures depending on where you are in relation to that wobbling jet stream.
Okay, Professor Mark Howden, really appreciate your thoughts on the program today. Thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Cheers.